Hey, it's Game Hydro. Got another video for you about OMFG Lucky Me, a game that used to be called Lucky Defense until they decided to change the name. Now, why did they decide to change the name? Maybe they just liked it better that way. All right, haven't heard that song in decades, but for some reason I still remember it. So what we're going to do today is go over the Mythic heroes, what the best Mythic heroes are, and which ones you should spend your 3,000 gems on. All right, so we're going to go to the hero list and go over all the Mythic heroes, their stats, their skills, and which ones are the best and why. Kicking things off, we got the Pulse Generator. As you can see, the attack power is kind of low compared to some others, but let's look at the skills. You got reduces all enemies' movement speed by 30, and that's a permanent movement speed reducer. 8% chance to manipulate space and time, dealing 400% magic damage at 0.1 second intervals for 1 second, so 10 attacks total, and stunning for 3 seconds at the end. And then the Pulse Beam is the ultimate. Fires a charged Pulse Beam, dealing 5,000% magic damage to enemies in range. The recommended location tends to be somewhere around the outer edges. Just the fact of the attack power is not super impressive, but just the fact of slowing down every enemy on the screen, that is a hugely valuable skill that can help you last way more rounds than you may have lasted otherwise. So next up, we got Kitty Mage, low attack power for a Mythic, ranged attack. Increases MP regeneration rate for all allies by 20%, though that's pretty useful. And Kitty Punch, 2,000 magic damage and restoring 5 MP. And restoring 10 to allies within range. So this is the recipe. It's a pretty easy recipe to get. All you need is 3 commons and 1 legendary. Few different recommended positions there. So with that in mind, because of the MP, I'm giving the kitty A tier. All right, Bomba is next. Massive amounts of damage from this guy. Lots of attack power. Attack speed, decent. He's a melee type though. He can't do ranged attacks. Skills, reduces all enemies' defense by 20%, by 20 points. Uses Giant Fist to turn basic attacks into area of effect attacks. That's pretty useful. 8% chance to make a serious punch, dealing 3,000% physical damage and stunning for 3 seconds. If that one hits a boss, that could be an instant kill against some bosses. 8% chance to slam the ground with a hammer, dealing 1,500% physical range damage. All right, that's pretty nice. This one is a little tougher to get. 1 legendary, 1 epic, and 1 common. But with only 3 instead of 4 to get. This one will be coming up later in rounds typically. But obviously you're going to put him at the forefront. All that damage, he's A tier. Next up, we got Coli. Coli has pretty decent attack power. Good attack speed. Reduces all enemies' movement speed by 50. That is extraordinarily useful. The slower the enemies move, the better chance you have to beat them quickly. Increases the number of glaciers in Glacier Collision by 10, and Glacier Collision is the ultimate. Drops 20 giant glaciers at random locations, dealing 600% magic damage to enemies within range. That's a lot of glaciers. Blizzard, 8% chance to do 2,000 magic damage and stun enemies within range for 3 seconds. And Ice Flower has a chance to create a giant ice flower, dealing 2,000 magic damage and reducing movement speed by 50 for 1 second. 1 second is not that long, but that's a lot of damage. And then the recipe is 1 legendary, 1 rare, and 1 common. That's actually a fairly easy recipe for a powerful attacker. So with Coli, I'm going S tier. All right, Batman, top home run hitter whose attack increases as their bat upgrades. Rumor has it they can also pitch. So basically, Shohei Ohtani, or if you're a Padre fan, Jake Cronenworth. All right, so upgrades the bat, increases attack. The bat will break, and the level will reset when the upgrade fails with a set probability. 12% chance to smash down, 3,000% physical damage. Delivers a powerful swing to enemies in front, dealing 6,000% physical damage. That is a ridiculous attack. That's a melee type, and that recipe is a little bit... Actually, that recipe is about as difficult as Bomba's recipe, but he's not quite as powerful as Bomba. Still, though, with those attacks, I'm going A- tier. Then you got Ninja. This is the starting one. Decent attack, 5.3, a little bit low. 10% chance to throw a giant shuriken in front, dealing 2,000% physical damage to enemies within range, so area of effect. 10% chance to deal 5,000 physical damage, an additional 10% to trigger the skill again. Lasts for 2 seconds and deals 700% physical damage at 0.1 second intervals. That one is pretty good. Requires 1 epic and 2 rares, so moderately difficult to get the recipe going. So with Ninja, I'm going about B tier. Useful, but not one of the most useful. Now let's go over the rest of these dudes. There's a lot of them here. Graviton. Stuns enemies within range with a ranged attack. Manipulates gravity to deal 100% magic damage to enemies within range. 10% chance to deal 1,200 magic damage and stun enemies within range. So splash attacks, but low attack power. Recipe is surprisingly difficult for this guy. So that's one of the reasons I didn't purchase him. Going B-. Now, Orc Shaman, 5,000 attack power. Reduces enemies' defense by 20. 8% chance to curse enemies within range, dealing 2,000% magic damage and stunning for 2 seconds. Infects enemies within range with the ultimate, dealing 400 magic damage at ½ second intervals for 10 seconds. So, all said and done, that's about 8,000% magic damage. Pretty good poison type with a range. Requires 2 epics and 1 rare. That's not that difficult of a recipe. So for Orc Shaman, I'm going A-. Next, we got Lancelot by wearing legendary armor discovered by Alright, so attack power pretty high. Melee type, though. Increases all allies' attacks by 10%. Not too bad. Skill damage deals an additional 0.2% of the target's max hit points, so that's useful against bosses. Fairly. 16% chance to unleash a flame slash, dealing 2,200% damage. 8% chance to slash an enemy, dealing 1,500 magic damage and implementing condensed flames. The flames explode after a short duration, dealing 1,500 to enemies within range. So that's 1,500 twice, basically. And the ultimate slams the ground to create a flame pillar, dealing 360% magic damage at 1/10 of a second intervals for 1 second. That's pretty good damage there. Recipe, though, surprisingly difficult to get for the attacks that you see here. Attack power is not quite high enough to justify that, in my opinion. So, but it's still pretty high. I'm going B+. Iron Meow, 8,700 rather. Only 2 skills, 1 passive. Use 15 luck stones to equip the suit. 20% chance to fire a pulse beam. dealing 2000% magic damage to enemies within range. So that's before. Let's tap on that to change it to after equipping the suit. Now you got 5 skills and 14,000 attack. Increases MP regeneration by 30%. 10 luck stones to equip the upgraded power suit. Fires a pulse beam, dealing 500% magic damage. How is that a passive skill? 8% chance to spin and deal 4,000% magic damage to enemies within range. Condenses energy to fire a beam with the ultimate, dealing 900% magic damage 20 times. So that's 18,000 total magic damage percent. That's a stupidly powerful attack. Recipe, one legendary but 2 commons. That's actually pretty easy. I'm going A for Iron Meow. Next up, we got Blob, the dude who is in the title of the game, or the splash image for the game. An alien, yeah. Attack 6,800. Reduces enemies' defense. Increases attack by 10 for each enemy killed. That's actually has pretty good. Well, increases its own attack by 10. That's not that good. Sticky Punch, 8% chance to swing repeatedly and deal 4,000 physical damage. Summon Sticky Spikes that deal 4,000% physical damage. And the recipe requires 2 epics and 1 common. So it's a fairly easy recipe, but not that strong of a fighter. I'm going B tier for the Blob. Next up is the Dragon. The egg doesn't have any attack power, but it can increase allies' attack by 10%. And once every 10 seconds, 2% chance to hatch it. Now after, you got 16,300 attack power. Same attack increase. Increases attack by 30% for each animal type guardian. That's pretty strong. 8% chance to spit a giant fireball, dealing 5,000% magic damage. 10% chance to explode flames on the ground, dealing 6,000% damage. And 9,000% magic damage with the ultimate twice. So that is extraordinarily strong. The recipe, surprisingly easy for that kind of damage. However, there's a lot of lost time trying to hatch that dragon egg. So with that, I'm going to give it A- tier because that's just because of the lost time. Otherwise, the dragon would be S tier. Next up, you got the Monopoly Man. Oh, wow. Copyright pending over here. Attack power 7,600. Transforms common tier enemies into 1 luck stone. So the luck stones obviously can be used for more upgrades to your mythics and your legendaries. And then the recipe, 2 epics and 1 rare. That's okay, I guess. But not that strong. Also reduces enemies' defense. There's better ones out there. I'm going C tier. Mama. Summons an imp when defeating an enemy with a skill. 8,100%, 8,100 attack. Drops defense, 8% chance to curse an enemy with magic damage, and reducing defense by 50 for 5 seconds. Curses enemies, dealing 2,000% magic damage. Summons the imp upon a kill. Not a lot of damage there, but the summoning of imps can be pretty good. And that requires 3 epics. Little bit of a steep recipe for what you get. I'm going B-. And then the Frog Prince, 7,200 attack. Increases attack speed by 10% for all allies. 25% chance to ascend into a divine being. Becomes eliminated upon fail. So 75% chance of getting eliminated. 8% chance to strike an enemy's head with a sword, dealing 500% physical damage. Has an 8% chance to attack with tongue. Lasts for 2.5 seconds, dealing 600% magic damage 5 times and reducing movement speed. And if he does transform, he becomes King Dion. That's a ranged attacker. Attack speed. Insta-kills enemies with hit points below 3%. Strikes 5 random enemies. 300% magic damage. Strikes for 20 seconds, dealing 500% magic damage at 0.1 second intervals. So that is a total of about 100,000%. No, not 100,000. Is it? Yeah, 100,000% magic damage. So the ultimate redeems King Dion because it's a stupidly powerful ultimate, and combined with somebody that can slow enemies down, that will just kill everybody. But because it's so hard to get there, not all that worth it. 2 epics and 2 commons. Decently easy recipe, but because you have to jump through so many hoops with King Dion, and there's a 75% chance of eliminating frog prince, which is awful. I'm going C- for that one. And now you got some more of them over here. You got Vayne, 21.6 attack and a pretty fast attack speed. Manually moving the Guardian triggers 3,000% damage on the next basic attack. That's not bad. Just move the Guardian around constantly. Every third attack deals 5,000% on the same target. Use a giant weapon to attack. Increases attack by 400% and attack speed by 200% for 10 seconds. That's not bad. And that requires 1 legendary, 1 rare, 1 epic, and 1 common. So a little bit of a steep recipe, but attack power and everything else is pretty excellent. I'm going A tier for this guy. All right. Next up, we got Indy. That's a ranged attacker. Can hold up to 1 treasure, granting buffs to allies based on what type of treasure held. Has a chance to deal 4,000% physical damage to enemies within range and reduce movement speed by 70 for 2 seconds. Looks for a treasure hidden somewhere on the map. When reaching the hidden location, can press a button to excavate and claim the treasure. Okay. Recipe is about moderate. It's a legendary, an epic, and a rare. Not too difficult, I guess. Attack power is good. The treasure thing is unique. I'm going B+ for Indy. Next up, we got Watt, who looks kind of like Bart Simpson, but with Dale Gribble's equipment. So 16,400 attack. Energy absorb, 5% to a chance to absorb 1 energy with each basic attack. 8% chance to absorb 1 energy and deal 5,000% damage. Activates burst mode, increasing attack speed by 100% and attack by 3% for each 1 energy absorbed. During the burst mode, consumes energy, dealing 2,000% magic damage. That's pretty strong. Recipe is surprisingly easy for this kind of power. I'm going A- to B+ for Watt. Next, you got Tar. Looks like Blob's evil cousin. 6,300. Attack speed is 1. Pretty strong for a dude made out of tar. The tier is determined with a set chance upon summoning, and all stats differ based on the tier. Absorbs the lowest tier tar. Increases attack by 15% upon absorption. 8% chance to spray and attach black substance to enemies within range. The substance lasts for 5 seconds, dealing 5,000% damage at half-a-second intervals, reducing defense by 7. 8% chance to deal 3,000 damage. Common monster deals 50% additional damage. Meh. Deals 1,000 physical damage 6 times to enemies in range. So it's an area of effect attack. Requires 2 epics, 1 rare, and 1 common. All that combined together is not really blowing my skirt up. I'm going B- for Tar. Next up, we got Rocket Chew, another one with 2 forms. Form number 1 is ranged. Form number 2 also ranged, but with double the attack power. 35% to become stronger by attempting to overclock. Becomes eliminated upon failing and deals 100,000% physical damage to enemies within range. Upgraded Rocket has a 10% chance to deal 4,000 physical damage. Fires 4 missiles every 20 attacks, dealing 2,500 to enemies within range. Now, the overclock version, the higher the target's hit point, the more damage is dealt, increasing by 1%. Has a 10% chance to deal 6,000 physical damage to enemies within range. Fires 4 missiles every 15 attacks, dealing 4,000 physical damage per missile to enemies within range. So that's 16,000. Mini Choose Drone lasts for 10 seconds, dealing 700 physical damage at 0.1 second intervals. So Overclock does have, Rocket Chew does have one of the same pitfalls that the Frog Prince does, where he self-destructs if the transformation attempt doesn't go right. However, that self-destruction goes with 100,000% physical damage, which is completely insane. So Rocket Chew, I'm giving tier A, whatever. Sorry, I'm tired. All right, next up, the Lazy Taoist. After spending a long time training, he finally mastered, etc. 16,700 fast attack. Deals more powerful attacks to faraway targets, which is interesting. The farther the target is, the damage increases by 5. 10% chance to send a storm that lasts for 1 second and deals 750% at 0.1 second intervals. That's 7,500% total. Wind Elemental deals 8,000% damage to enemies within range. The fewer the enemies, the damage increases by 10. And the info on this one, surprisingly, very easy to get. All it takes is 1 legendary, 1 rare, and 1 common. Between that and the super high damage, I'm giving Lazy Taoist S-tier. Now, I forgot to check the recipe here. Recipe for Rocket Chew, pretty easy. I'm moving him up to S- tier. Next up, you got Zap, science genius born into a family of mages with inventions powered by, okay, whatever. 17,300 attack is legit, but a slow attack speed. Basic attacks now deal magic damage. They constantly target a single enemy and are not affected by attack speed change events. That can be positive or negative. Has a 10% chance to fire 2 magic missiles, each dealing 2,500%. Increases damage by 100% for 20 seconds. When continuously attacking the same target, basic attack damage increases by 100% every half a second. Max 15 seconds. Okay, so info, the recipe's a little more expensive there. But this ultimate attack, it'll be hard to aim properly, but combined with aiming it properly and someone else that slows enemies down, you could knock out pretty much any boss instantly there. But I'm going to go B tier for that one. Not quite as strong as some of the others. All right, down to the final 4. We got Master Kun, always angry, 18,700 attack, decent attack speed, pretty good attack speed actually. The number of spinning flames increases with every 30 stacks of Endure Rage. Endure Rage, pressing the button causes Master Kun to endure anger for 15 seconds, entering an immobile state. Enduring increases attack by a random value. Creates 2 spinning flames for 10 seconds with a 6% chance, dealing 550% magic damage. Inflicts area damage equal to 5,000% magic damage with an 8% chance. If the target hit point is above 50, additional damage of 100 is inflicted. Percent, that is. The random increase, that could be good, could be bad. Recipe is a little on the expensive side. I'm going B tier for that guy. Next up, we got Verie. All plants, yeah. 20,200 attack, decently fast attack speed, ranged. Each attack from tree has a 12% chance to inflict 6,500 physical damage. Now you got tree. Summons a tree for 30 seconds, dealing 2,500% magic damage to enemies within range every 1 second. That's not bad. Thorny Seed, 10% chance to plant a Thorny Seed, which explodes after 10 seconds, dealing 6,000% physical damage to enemies within range. Summons Vines every 25 attacks, dealing 7,000 physical damage to enemies within range. That one's not bad. That's some pretty high attacks. I'm going A tier for Verie. Penguin Musician, 13,000 attack, medium speed. Each time a Guardian is transformed, there's a 30% chance to gain 1 Luck Stone. That's a pretty low chance. 10% chance to increase attack speed of allies within range by 20% for 3 seconds. 10% chance for 6,000% physical damage to enemies within range, and reduces movement speed by 60% for 5 seconds. I like the reduction of speed. Playing the instrument randomly selects 1 tile and randomly transforms the grade and type of the Guardian on the tile. Oh, that's not one of the more impressive ones I've seen, but the damage is still pretty good. I'm going B tier. Oh, and the info. Okay, no legendaries needed. 3 epics though, so moderately difficult. Finally, you got Hailey. Hailey has 19,200 attack and medium attack power. Star power, summoning a unit using the summon button has a 20% chance to gain star power. Stacks up to 10, increases attack by 200%. Not bad. You're going to do a lot of summoning, so that's really not bad. 10% chance to fire a laser beam from her eyes, dealing 5,000% damage to enemies in the range. Okay, DPS. 12% chance to inject energy into the target after 7 seconds. The energy explodes, dealing 5,000% to nearby enemies. Also, pretty strong one. Supernova. For 30 seconds, increases attack boost from star power by 50% and increases all skill damage by 50%. So, lots of support type boosts there, and some pretty strong attacks on top of that. Recipe, moderately difficult, giving her an A+. So, yeah, that's the tier list for the Mythic heroes, Mythic Guardians rather. Hope you enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe if you did, and leave a comment if you want to see us do some more content about this game, or you got another game you want us to do content about. All right.